Yeah, so okay, this is a tour of my house. It's going to be a little bit choppy. I'm going to just keep turning it on and off, and then I'm going to splice it all together. But if you're walking up to my house, you'd see this brick, my mango tree over there, my dragon fruit up there, and then the front door. So just inside the front door is this Kurt Weiser platter. He was my first college ceramics teacher. Ran the Archie Bray Foundation for a long time. He's still teaching at Arizona State University. He's the guy that did all of the China painting that I show people all the time. And the way this was done is that those little recessed areas were pieces of rubber inner tube from trucks cut out and then rolled into the clay. And these larger spots, he would put piles of kaolin on there, and then he put it into a soda kiln, and it's covered in a red terra sigillata, and the soda made it a dark brown. So in these recesses there's no sigillata, so he put down the rubber, pressed it in, then painted the sigillata over. So it's got this nice soft creamy surface on it. In our living room, we've got these shelves that run over the top of 3/4 of the way around the room, right up underneath the ceiling to hold ceramics. Over here they're 2 deep, but most of the way around the room they're just 1 deep. And so it makes a nice place to store a whole lot of pottery. There's always something to look at here. And so we're going to look at just some of this today. This is a Studio of Warren Mackenzie bowl. It was probably made by him, but it could have been made by one of his apprentices. It does not have a stamp because he was tired of people coming and buying all his pots up and then selling them in New York City for a lot of money. One of my students went there and got the pot and gave it to me. She bought one for herself and one for me. This is a little statue by Akio Takamori after his son was born. Nice little bottle there. This big pot right here, let me zoom out. This is a water jar, and it's pretty big. It'll hold maybe 2 gallons, gallon and a half, 2 gallons, maybe, yeah, 2 gallons, that's about right. And it was bonfire fired in Thailand. It's made out of earthenware. It cost about 60 cents. And then a whole bunch to ship it. Over here is some of my Thai mortar collection. They're from different cities. The first one there, it's got a real heavy ash glaze on it. That's just ash that was flying through the kiln. Looks a little bit like salt in part of it because ash has some sodium and potassium in it. It's from the village of Don Quyen, but that was just ash flying through the kiln. On the top of the next one's another mortar by Don Quyen, and underneath is a mortar from Ponbok. And then there's an Ubon mortar. The middle mortar I made. The next mortar is also from Ubon. The next one is from Ubon and has a salt glaze on it. And the last one is from Nakhon Pathom in Thailand. And so that's the biggest, as far as I know, it's the biggest Thai mortar collection in the U.S. I'm sure there are bigger collections in Thailand. This is a pot by a former student, Mary Jo Craiglow, and she just made this. It's really a pinch pot between her 2 hands, and she just kept working a big piece of clay until she got it done. It's really pretty big. There it is. And while we're here, these are some foofy fancy porcelain cups. They're translucent. They're done in porcelain and bone china. Look at the light come through there. It's really kind of amazing. There's a lot of gold luster on this. This built-up gold luster is called Roman gold. The handle, that's just plain gold luster. And then some overglaze painting on it. And here you go. Made in Austria. And you can see the light shining through there. It's really kind of cool. This is an old piece of Gales from graduate school. It's got a paper background. It's just a pair of pots with a circus pots with a circus background. This is my styrofoam peanut collection. There's one of every shape and color in there. Okay. This is a cup by Akio Takamori. There's the signature Akio. Let's say Akio right there. And it really has a story about it. I was really interested in function. What does that word really mean? What is the function of pottery? What's the function of art? Are we really just talking, when we use that word, are we just talking about dinnerware? Or do we really mean something different? And he had these glaze tests in his studio. Functional glaze tests. They were made to serve a function. And they were really beautiful. And I wanted them, and he wouldn't give them to me. And I think afterwards he felt bad. So he made me this cup. And it has all the different parts of the face labeled. Cheeks, eyes, eyebrows, nose, lips, chin. And he has the kanji for them. And then he wrote it in Romanji, in English letters, so that I could learn them. Your ears, Mimi. Yeah. And it's hard to know exactly how he did this, but most of these were salt fired to about cone 6, and he just used a commercial glaze for the inside. We have a number of his cups. There's a couple at school that I have around, one that's cracked. And we'll go over and look at one more thing by him. This is our Akio Rina. It's a whistle. You can see the whistle hole cut in there. And then the inlet at the feet. And it's got a hole there and 2 holes here to play it. And all of these, you know, they're all done in porcelain, cone 6 porcelain, and then overglaze. And so the black is black slip that's painted on when it's first made. And then the colors, the yellow, the red, and the green, are Japanese leaded overglazes. Here, I'll play that for you. Give me a second here. We'll turn this around so I can watch it. There we go. That's the Akio Rina. So here is my collection of rum bottles. Part of it anyways. This is an original hand-thrown rum bottle. It's thrown all the way up. It's got this really nice, quickly pulled off the pot handle on it. Very simple attachment on it. No stamp. This second one here is a mass-produced extruded bottle. And the way you can tell it's extruded is that you can see the extrusion lines on it. See those vertical lines? There, you can't reuse the bottle. And if you notice up here, they twist. And that's because the top of this bottle was thrown on a wheel and it got some torque in it while it was being thrown. So if you see a bottle with these vertical striations, and then they twist near the top, you know it was both extruded and then thrown. And so I saw one of these bottles, and I decided I was going to make some. So I made a hollow extruder die, and then I started extruding them near leather hard, and I put them in a chuck on the wheel. I put a baseball bat down the center and beat a bottom into it, and then I threw the top part and I pulled handles. And I made hundreds of these bottles, so I had to learn how to pull handles. And as I got going, they got better and better. When I started, I didn't know how to pull a handle very well, but I learned how to pull them after a while. Here's one of the more early ones. And some of them have an ash glaze on them, and some of them don't. And I got a bunch of them hanging from the Archie Bray Foundation old studio building eaves. And so there's my rum bottles. So thrift store pots. This is a pot that I found in town here. I think it was at the Salvation Army. I can't quite remember. I paid $2 for it. I don't know exactly how old it is. It's handmade. The glaze, I believe the glaze contains some lead in it. I'm not absolutely positive, but I think so. So we don't use it. You know, I would just be guessing at how old it is, but the whole thing was glazed and then the foot was wiped off sort of wet, and then it was stacked on something that would let go. I'm thinking that this pot is well over 100 years old, but I'm not sure. This is another pot that we found at a thrift store. I think we found this in the Midwest. Has a nicely made lid. Look at that nice flange on there. It's got a little chip. It's got an ash glaze on the inside and on the outside. What's inside it? Oh, look at that. And when we bought it, we didn't know who made it. I thought, oh, somebody made this. And I don't know what we were missing, but here is the J.O. stamp on it. This is Jeff Astrike. And it's just one of those things, you never know what you're going to find and where you're going to find it. So this is a Jeff Astrike pot. He's one of Warren McKenzie's students, and if you remember, or if you don't know, Warren McKenzie was a Leach apprentice. So we got Bernard Leach, we got Warren McKenzie, then we got Jeff Astrike, who studied at University of Minnesota with Warren McKenzie. And this over here, this is a pot that was made in a community class that I taught at the Archie Bray Foundation, I think. I'm not positive, but the handle looks like it might have had some influence from me or the Archie Bray Foundation. And it's signed Winecoop, Rosalie Winecoop. And she's one of my students that went on from that community class. There were two in that community class that went on to keep making pots. She then went to the Kansas City Art Institute and is now living in Bozeman, Montana. We got back to Helena one day, and I was supposed to go grocery shopping, and on the way to the grocery store was a thrift store, so I stopped there and I turned over all the handmade pots. And you know, this is handmade, but it's kind of funky. The glaze bubbled, and somebody rubbed down the glaze with a brick or something to knock down the bubbles. Maybe it got refired once. It's really funky looking, but it was only 50 cents. I walked right by it. And then I said, hold it. What did that say on the bottom? And I walked back down the aisle, and I saw the bottom. And I looked at that and I said, oh, I got to buy that. 50 cents. Peter Voulkos. What's this about, you know? You throw it away, you know, how come you made this coffee cup, and why is it like this? And but I bought it. I picked up another pot as sort of a decoy. I walked up to the counter. I put my 50 cents down for this, and another 50 cents or 25 cents for another pot, and I walked out. And I had myself a genuine Peter Voulkos teacup. Well, it turns out that Leach and Hamada came through and talked about their apprenticeship program, and it really impressed Archie Bray. And Archie Bray decided that there was going to be Archie Bray Foundation standard wear, and he made everybody make it. And Voulkos And you're supposed to put the Archie Bray Foundation stamp on it. Volkus hated this idea. So he made these cups because he had to in order to stay there. And then instead of stamping them, he signed them. That signature is because he didn't want to stamp them. He made them. He put his name on there. So that's Archie Bray Foundation standard ware made by Peter Volkus. This is one of Gale's covered jars made in undergraduate school. It's got a glaze sprayed on it. It is either Cat's 123 ash, 1234 ash, or Weiser dry ash. Next to it, a pot by Kathy Frisbee that was stannous chloride fumed. Okay, the kitchen. This is one of our bowl racks here. You're probably hearing the washing machine groan in the background. This is a Josh Deweese cup made here. This is Wally Bivens here. It's got a donut handle on it. The handle's got a hole in the bottom so it won't blow up in the kiln. Also, it won't hopefully blow up in a microwave if you do that, but it was from before microwaves. It's glazed in an old Tasha glaze. I can't remember what that glaze is called. This is Daniel Johnston or Mark Hewitt? This is a Hewitt School pot. Mark Hewitt. This is a Mark Hewitt pot. And you can see that real runny ash glaze. It's an ash glaze that's been salted. Salt is sort of like soda. Usually people salt heavier than they soda, but it's not a firm rule. That's a Clarielian pot. This is Crystal. I think that's Chris Nelson right there. Real nice coarse clay pot. Nice atmospheric color. The next one is also Clarielian, a sort of gray-green, and then another Clarielian, and then I think this is Chandler Dayton. This is also Clarielian, this little white cup here. It's really nice. This is one of Gale's from school in the last year. Clarielian, Gregory Teagarden. Oh man, I should remember who this is. It's bad. It'll come to me. This is a Josh Deweese cup that's fell behind the bag wall in a wood fire kiln and is so grody you cut your lip if you drink out of it. We got a Lisa Orr cup. These are two pots from Bant Gaw Noi in Thailand, near Sisachanalai. This is a Linda Christensen cup. And I know I was talking about this, but I can't remember the context. The other day I said somebody I was going to show it to them. But it's a residual salt cup, and it's sort of the precursor to the modern light soda firings. These two pots are Victor insulator cups. I suspect that they're knockoffs. They say Victor on the bottom, but I think it's just a knockoff from China. They stopped making them, and these look too new. But these were originally made because the Victor Insulator Company had a downturn in the insulator business, and they wanted to keep their workers working so that they could keep their skilled labor. So they put them to work making cups. That's Chris Jorgensen there. This down here, this is a Gregory Teagarden. That's a Carol Rohrbach. This is Jeremiah Ibarra. He was a graduate student here. These little cups down here are from Onta, Japan. They've got chattered white slip on them, and they were a gift from Akio. the top shelf in the kitchen. In the corner we got the Gray Lady there. That's by Gail. I think it's from the beginning of graduate school. This is a Clary Elegant white pitcher there. Maybe a chocolate pot. This is a Mackenzie Smith teapot with a reed handle on it. Boy, I think that's a Chandler Dayton there. It's a big Clary pitcher. This is a Josh DeWeese coffee pot with a sort of Melita strainer on there. Let me move my chair down here. That's a Gail Bush pitcher sitting next to a Gregory Teagarden pitcher from North Carolina. Robert Harrison, you don't hardly ever see any pots of his, but he did make pots. This is a commercial flameware from Alion's factory in China. And that's a Mark Hewitt up there. We got a Lisa Orr all the way up there in front of some stainless steel, behind some stainless steel cups, and a, I think it's a Bernie Katz art piece. My Uncle Bernie used to make stuff. We have a Charlie Schley piece done in Soldner Halo Raku with a dog barking, howling at the moon. And over here, a Gail Bush vase with a swan on it, or some other bird. Hey, That's Me by Charlie Schley. It's a Suwannee piece. There's another one hiding behind the light over here by Suwannee. This piece of glass over here is by Janusz Valentinovich, something like that. He's a glass maker, and so that was blown. It has a very thin layer of leaded glass over the top that is lightly reduced, and then it was sandblasted away on the top part, and lines were etched in it, and the lines were filled with ink. This is a Thai sculpture with two lids from Kirimat in Thailand, and behind it a Kathy Irvin pot from when she was in Illinois. And on the mantle here we've got a Hiroshige print. One of Gail's pieces there. A bunch of stuff. We're really only getting a smattering of what's in the house. There's a lot of ceramics in here that we just won't see. This is a functional painting made to sell brick. And here we got an Alice Schindel plate from a very long time ago when she was in undergraduate school. Sitting next to it is a really nice basket, sort of a basket sieve. I think it's for winnowing wheat, but I'm not sure. It's not a kitchen sink, it's a bathroom sink. There it is. It's done in Korean Celadon or glass glaze, and it has little red spots in it from bits of copper wire oxide, and it's sitting on a refinished piece of industrial marble. It was an insulator board for the telephone plant in Helena, Montana. Okay, so let's take a look in the pot cupboard here. There you go. Zoom in a little bit, it makes it squarer. These are Frank Fabens. They're slip cast. They're from when he had a studio in Seattle. He took commercial wholesale orders and would cast them the originals there never really was an original with these. He would make a mold for the top and then a mold for the bottom, and piece them together, I think. Maybe there was an original piece of clay, but it evolved as they were being made. We have several Lisa ores in there. Here's one. Earthenware. We've got these pots by Lisa Marshall, and we've had them for maybe 30 years, and the glaze was getting really beat up, and so we took them and refired them and got the glaze back the way it was when it was new. Maybe that's unfair, but they restored really pretty well. They're done in earthenware and slip, and so you can see that's just one of those serrated ribs that was drawn through the layers of slip. There's 3 layers of slip there. Here's some more Lisa Marshall ware taken down to set aside. And I get down a Matt Kelleher plate. This is Matt Kelleher. It was purchased by my mother, and when she moved out of her house, she gave them to us. And they're done in maybe cone 6 soda, something about there anyways. This is one of Gail's demo plates from school. This is a Sarah Yeager plate. And the glaze on it is something, this is something like St. John's Black, but it's with Alberta slip. And this is similar to Reeves Green. That's what the original glazes were. This is what Reeves Green looked like when we went to school. It's a pot from mine from Rhode Island. Here's a Lisa Marshall plate done with Friscuits. So she cut those animal shapes and this van shape and the square out of probably a piece of plastic or maybe wax covered paper. Stuck it down to the pot and then slipped over it. And just put some water down and stick it down, and then take a brush with some slip over the top of it. And I think that will do for this cupboard. Boy, there's other stuff in it. There's all of these pots from when I was learning to throw really quickly. There's stuff up here. There's stuff everywhere. You're only really getting a taste here, but I tried to pick out the best taste. Here's some brick tongs that I cast in bronze. I remade them. And with that, I guess we'll call it a day. Thank you. So let's see what's going on around back. This is a guava tree. That's tamarind. This is a very sick kaffir lime tree. I hope that it recovers. Up there we have one of my ham radio antennas. Let's go into this mess that I call a studio. I'm currently printing masks for people to use as PPE. Here's a box full of them. And over here we have my calliope. It's not all set up. I've got some of it taken apart for repairs, but some of the high notes are going, so I'll turn it on so you can hear at least a little bit of it. And so I made all the pipe work, made out of PVC pipe. And all of these have a little plug in here. And on the top of the plug, they're a little bit thinner, so there's a slot that allows air to come up and hit the whistle right here. And so they're really just big whistles. And the ends are plugged, which lowers the frequency by 1 octave. And all the plastic parts were turned on this machinist's lathe down here, which is from just after World War II. And the cool thing about a machinist's lathe is that you can click this handle, and when you turn it on, it will travel one direction or another. And you can use it to cut screws, and it'll turn metal and do all sorts of interesting things. This is my work table that gets cleaned off before I start a big project, and then it fills up with junk, and then I clean it off again. This is my studio computer and a bunch of ham radio equipment that I haven't been using. And this is the ham radio equipment that I used to talk Thailand on all the time. It sort of hooks up over the internet. And so that's the studio. I got a workbench over there. It's currently involved in winding filament for the printers. My tool cabinet. I got some nice tools in here. This pair of pliers was belonged to my grandfather, Louis Katz. I got another. That's my paternal grandfather. These were my maternal grandfather's pliers. They came out of the trunk of his car. And I got a couple of saws from my father there too. And so that's the studio. It's filled up with stuff. And if you think that's a mess, you should see what goes on up here.